Hey folks, welcome back. So in previous videos, we've taken the steps, we've read through the article, we read through it and highlighted and annotated interesting style that stood out to us. In the last video, we worked on finding focus in what we highlighted and then developing a good working thesis. Now we're ready to kind of prove our overall ideas and prove our point that we've set up in the thesis statement. So what we've got is we're going to take our information and organize it and get it ready to draft those body paragraphs. So one of the key things to remember when you're doing a rhetorical analysis is that the support that you use is going to come directly from the text itself, but then you've got to add your commentary to it. So the commentary is key because that's where you're explaining the evidence that you found and how it ties back to your overall meaning and purpose of your argument. So just to recap real quick, the working thesis that we're working with is that the author is calling upon her experience as a mother and a writer, and pairing it with a wide range of facts and details with a sarcastic tone in order to suggest that the princess industry is having a negative effect on young girls' self-perception. So in that commentary, everything, we got to tie that back to the industry having a negative impact on young girls' self-perception. So one of the things that I've just noticed in my years in teaching is most students are actually okay here with the strategies, and most of them actually do pretty well with the evidence part of it. It's really here in the commentary that becomes lacking. So I've got this little graphic organizer that you can use to help you kind of organize everything and then make sure that you're hitting all the necessary points that you need. So you'll notice in the rhetorical strategy column, I've separated out the different rhetorical strategies. So we've got ethos as a mother, we've got ethos as a professional writer, and then we've got the logos, facts and details, and then the sarcastic tone, which we could probably connect a little bit to pathos maybe. In this middle column, all I did was I took my textual evidence that I found, and then I divided it out into the different rhetorical strategies that they used. So you'll notice here in the ethos as a mother, I've got the incident at the doctor's office and then the restaurant and the drugstore. So I've got two examples for that one. Here I've got one example of her ethos as a professional writer, and then the facts and details, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 examples there. And then the sarcastic tone, I've got 1, 2 examples there. So keep in mind, you're not just using one example to prove each one. Now, the ethos as a professional writer one up here, that there's only one example of that, but you're finding as much evidence as you can. The more evidence, the stronger the argument. So don't look at like what's a minimum of examples I have to use. You take that and then you find everything that you can for it. So when we're looking at the logos, facts, and concrete details, I'm finding as many facts and details that are used to prove that point as I can, and that's how I end up coming up with 4 of them. So just keep that in mind. Now, like I said before, the commentary, this is where we really got to focus, and by using this graphic organizer, we can put down our thoughts to get us, before we start writing a rough draft, an idea of what we're going to say. So in the ethos as a mother, I've got 2 examples, and so what I've got to do is, how do those 2 examples work to establish credibility as a mother? But again, we've got to tie it back to the overall thesis that we're proving, which is the princess industry is having a negative effect on young girls' perception. So when I look at those 2, how does that help prove the point? And essentially, it expresses her frustration that this princess culture seems to be everywhere, that you can't escape it. It's at the dentist's office, it's at restaurants, it's at drugstores, it's everywhere. So I'm going to be explaining that. And then what I would do is take each individual piece and explain how each one shows her frustration. So how does the dentist's office show that frustration with it being everywhere? How does the restaurant, drugstore example show that same idea. When I go down to ethos as a professional writer, thinking how is that different from the ethos as a mother? So here she emphasizes that she has expertise on the topic through research and writing. So it's not just a kind of emotional connection as a mother, but it's also a professional expert kind of thing where she has been researching and writing about this for years. Moving down to the logos, we've got all these examples. How does that show that the industry is having a negative impact? Her appeal there to reason with factual information balances her personal and potentially subjective experience. It also provides a strong logical evidence on the kind of grand scope and how big this princess culture is. So we're moving from that kind of emotional ethos as a mother into a more logical kind of thing to balance out the emotional aspect of it, so that we can look at it. It's not just a mother overreacting. Here's some facts and evidence that go along with that. And then sarcastic tone there. How does that help prove this point? And then, like, stylistically, how does it connect back? Her tone there expresses the exasperation that she feels at the prevalence of all this princess stuff, even where we wouldn't expect it, like something like a princess's, or not a princess, but a dentist's office. So by using that, and then we could also comment on how a humorous tone adds a little bit of levity to a serious kind of a subject there to kind of break down some of those barriers. So using this last column to get your thoughts down about commentaries will help make sure that you're doing the actual analysis part of it. And then once we've got that done, we're ready to start writing.